Good morning to one and all present for the BCIC Leadership Conclave 2023. My name is Niranjan. On behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, I take this moment to welcome Padma Shri Adarniya Nivedita Bideji, then Mr. Sudhanshu Mani, then Mr. Chandu Kalro, Mr. Kandaswamy Bharathan. Then we have a few more speakers who would be joining us a bit late, but let me take their name as well. Mr. Kamal Bali, Mr. Shekhar Vishwanathan, Dr. Chetan Singhai, Mr. T.N. Hari, and Mr. Harish and Mr. Manu Saleh. So they will be joining us a bit late. And I also take this moment to welcome Dr. L. Ravindran, President BCIC and then Managing Director and CEO of WealthMax Group of Institutions, Companies. Dr. Devrajan, Senior Vice President BCIC and then Senior Vice President at TVS Motors. Mr. Vineet Verma, Vice President BCIC and Director Brigade Hospitality. And members of BCIC and the Secretariat. With just a small introduction about this conclave. With the ever rapid changing world, business needs to keep pace in terms of the transformation and be agile and nimble in order to challenge the status quo. The new normal is being drawn every now and then and leading to a paradigm shift in the way the business is conducted. The traits of a leader are being tested on every count, and in the aftermath of the upheaval moments that we have gone through, there requires a deep understanding of technology, people mindset to hold to the competitive edge in the business. So the Leadership Conclave 2023 brings in the industry stalwarts to share their experiences and wealth of knowledge that have accumulated over the past so many years with the audience here, so that they could basically take some of these things back and see how it could be done back in their businesses as well. So that's a small brief about BCIC Leadership Conclave. Now we have a short video of the corporate video of BCIC. I request my colleague, I just want to thank our annual sponsors of the event, Mrs. Bueller, Continental, Fundamax, IAMPL, MTR, SDM IMD, Sona Group of Companies, TVS, Vishwas, and Wipro. They have been of a great support to us in terms of organizing many of the events over the year, and we acknowledge their support and we thank them for their contributions to us. Now I request my colleague to play the corporate video. This corporate video would run for about 3 minutes. So we'll just have a look at the corporate video. Here we go. Thank you. It's my privilege to now call upon Mr. Krishna Kumar, founder and then MD of Simbus Technologies Private Limited. He would be moderating the session for the day. Mr. Krishna Kumar is an IT entrepreneur with 30 plus years of experience in fashion and IT industry. He is a featured speaker in several industry forums, sharing his experience in supply chain management, entrepreneurship, technology and strategy. He also served on several committees of Ministry of Textiles, Government of India, and served on the advisory board of India's premier fashion management college, National Institute of Fashion Technology. Mr. Krishna Kumar was also the secretary of IIM Ahmedabad Alumni Association, Bangalore. He is also the member of mentoring board of CIIE, the incubation engine of IIMA, and has also been on the jury of Power of Ideas Contest of Economic Times. Mr. Krishna Kumar, please come over and then take over. Thank you so much. And just one more thing, we would like Dr. Ravindran, Dr. Devarajan, and then Mr. Vinit to just present a memento to Mr. Krishna Kumar before he starts the session.
Thanks, Niranjan, for this introduction, and it's my pleasure and privilege to be standing in front of you. Thanks for the opportunity to the office bearers giving me this opportunity to moderate the session. So we have a very power-packed session. I mean, set of fantastic speakers, and we need to do justice to this session. So a couple of ground rules. Number one, kindly keep your mobiles in switched off or in silent mode so that we don't disturb this thing. Second, coffee and tea will be served there. So kindly make sure that you help yourselves from there. And third important thing is that we have a Q&A session after each speaker. And the way it is going to run is you will have people carrying around small boxes. Where are those boxes? Yeah, here it is. So you are being given slips. I presume all of you have collected the slips which were given when you registered. Kindly write down your questions on the slips, put it in the box. Then what we will do is we'll try to do justice to those questions. We'll pick up the questions, and then basis the time which we have on our hands, we will ask the questions to the eminent speakers. So that is what we plan to do today. And with this, let me give a quick overview. You all have seen the 3-minute corporate video of BCIC. And I won't take much time introducing what is BCIC, but suffice to note that BCIC is a very prominent stakeholder engagement association. So we engage with all the key stakeholders, be it the government, be it the corporates, be it the other industry bodies, not just in India, but globally. So some of the key activities which has happened under the aegis of BCIC in the past year have been really path-breaking and transforming. So it's we started off with some of the key activities are startup awards, which Mr. Jairaj here chaired. I was part of the committee. So this is to recognize startups which have a lot of promise and encourage them, give them a platform to showcase their promise and their capabilities. We also had the BCIC EV Summit, which was a very, very powerful statement on the kind of commitment BCIC and its member organizations bring to the table as far as sustainability and environment is concerned. Banking Summit, then we had the Women's Leadership Awards, then ESG Conclave. So set of activities which cover not just one specific area, but across very, very diverse set of industries, which truly represents what BCIC is composed of. So we have organizations from manufacturing, we have organizations from services, IT-enabled services, pharma. So a diverse set of companies make up BCIC, and it only is, it's important to note that our activities are tuned towards each of these various sectors. So coming to the event, BCIC Leadership Conclave, why are we here? What is the reason why we should take up this subject, and what is the purpose of this? I mean, Niranjan talked about the kind of changes what we are seeing around ourselves. So as a nation, as we complete 75 years since independence, you see the kind of changes. I've been there only from the late 60s, early 70s. But you can see for yourself from a command and control economy where the citizens were told what to do, what to eat, what to wear, to an economy today which is liberalized, where innovation abounds, prosperity abounds. We have a resurgent Bharat. We have innovation happening not just in the private sector, but there are fantastic examples of path-breaking innovations which is happening in the public sector as well. I mean, we have a speaker today talking about the Vande Bharat Express, which is the pride of India. We had the moon mission, we had the Mars mission. So this is the kind of India which is happening now. So there are phenomenal opportunities. There is a growing middle class. there is also a fantastic demographic dividend which we as a nation carry. We have the youngest workforce, a fairly phenomenal one, and which makes it a kind of an attractive destination for manufacturing companies to come and set up in India. The transformation what we have seen in services is phenomenal. In absolutely a very short amount of time, service has become the largest component of our economy, right? We also see innovation happening in agriculture. So there is no sector which is untouched by the kind of resurgence what we have seen in the last 10-15 years. It all started off in early 90s with the liberalization which our then Prime Minister Shri Narasimha Rao opened up, and today it is being carried under the present dispensation, and I'm sure it will go on further because it's kind of an unstoppable force whose time has come. Nobody can stop this momentum. While these opportunities abound, let's also remember there are a lot of challenges, right? Still a large part of our population is still below the poverty line. When you go to the villages, when you go to those areas, when you see some of the urban centers, there are still people who try to fight for a living, who try to fight and make ends meet, right? So unless we make sure that this progress and this development is equitable and touches every single human being in this country, we can't be happy about the progress what we have achieved, right? It has to be an equitable progress. There are also a lot of concerns about the way we are growing now. Look at agriculture. I mean, there is a lot of talk about doubling the agricultural income of the farmers, right? While the intention is there, we need to find the mechanisms to make sure that this is truly realized on the ground, right? That is one thing. Look at our labor productivity, right? The kind of productivity what we have achieved as a nation is far behind the global standards. While we are pumping in investments, the companies which are going to come in, be it the domestic companies, be it the foreign companies, are going to seriously look at, is the Indian labor, the Indian workforce, is it skilled, is it productive? We have amply demonstrated our abilities globally. Now is the time to demonstrate this across different sectors. So while all these challenges abound, if we believe that throwing money, throwing investment is the way to solve this, there's only one common asset or a weapon we have to actually address these challenges and ensure that our growth is not derailed. And what is that weapon? It is nothing but leadership, right? So leadership is what defines how we traverse this journey, and leadership across different sectors, be it the private sector, be it the commercial sector, be it the social sector, be it the public sector, that is what eventually is going to count whether we as a nation make the progress. So for that single purpose, as a thought leader in this space, BCIC has organized this conclave. We have an eminent set of speakers, and hopefully at the end of this session, you all will walk away with some very interesting perspectives, very interesting insights, and a lot of food for thought when you go back to your offices and homes today. So with that, let me start off by inviting the dignitaries to kindly come on stage and help in lighting the lamp as a sign of inauguration. So Padma Shri Nivedita Bideji, can you please come onto the stage? Sir, Mr. Sudhanshu Mani, please come to the stage. Mr. Kandasamy Bharatan, Mr. Chandu Kalro, Mr. Jairaj, and may also request the office bearers, Dr. Ravindran, Dr. Devarajan, Mr. Vineet Verma, please come on to the stage. So I also would like to invite Mr. Prakash Gadar. We have a e-Synergy, which is the publication of BCIC. So this particular publication is on, yeah, please come, sir. Yeah, and Mr. Ravindra Sa also. So this publication was basically around the EV summit, which we organized recently, which was a very resounding success. And this publication actually addresses some of the challenges what the EV sector is facing, and also proposes solutions to address the same. Thank you. So it's also my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jairaj, our own Mr. Jairaj. He's been a very, very active member of BCIC, has been a strong supporter and advocate of BCIC initiatives. Mr. Jairaj is a retired additional chief secretary, a very, very committed bureaucrat who actually helped realize many of the infrastructure and many of the initiatives which we see around today, which we are all proud of. And Mr. Jairaj, after having retired from the IAS serving the government of Karnataka, is now a member on various boards, be it the private sector and also the educational institutions. And it's our pleasure to invite you, sir, to give the inaugural, to give the welcome address. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to, on behalf of BCIC, its president and office bearers, extend a very warm welcome to all the distinguished invitees, guests, and participants at today's Leadership Conclave. All of us present in this room are students of leadership. Some of us are, of course, proven leaders, but even they are students in a way, and so this is actually a leadership laboratory, in my opinion. This initiative is owing to the drive and vision of the President, Mr. Ravindran. Please give him a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Ably supported by his team of Vineet and others. Please give them also a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. The purpose of this conclave is to disseminate ideas about leadership and the actual proven performance of those who are slated to speak today, as mentioned by Mr. Krishna Kumar. And the purpose also is to create a leadership culture that BCIC can sustain and foster in India of the 21st century. Many years ago, when I was commissioner of BBMP, I had the privilege of meeting Jack Welch. Jack Welch, if you know, was the chairman of GE, which was then the world's most well-known corporate. And I had the privilege of asking Jack Welch, what is a leader? And his description of a leader, and I'll be very brief, really stays with me, and I think, it will be valuable for you to compare that with when our speakers speak about their experiences. He said a leader must have 4 E's. 1, he or she must be energetic. 2, he or she must energize people. 3, he or she must have execution excellence. And 4, he or she must have a strong sense of ethics which will prescribe to them what is right and what is wrong, what to do and what not to do. So today, in the program that has been prepared carefully by BCIC, you will see a cross-section of people speaking about their leadership experiences, from the public service domain to the public sector to not-for-profit and the corporate world. So it straddles all these domains. And the common purpose behind all this is that their experiences will tell us what are the takeaways that you and I can really imbibe and take away from this conclave. It will also blast, ladies and gentlemen, stereotypes of leadership. Once upon a time, we thought leadership was restricted only to the corporate sector, that the public domain, the not-for-profit area, and the other education, for instance, we don't really have anything approaching the leadership which the private sector or the corporate sector has. We know now that that is not a reality. And at the end of the day, the experiences which they will tell before you, and which I know you will distill carefully, will make us understand that wherever we are, we have to move the agenda forward and move it constructively and progressively. And secondly, get the best out of the people who work with us and the resources that are available, so that wherever we are, we can make a maximum contribution to the national development of this country. Thank you very much.
Sir. Thank you, Mr. Jairaj, for setting the context. So our next speaker is someone who has selflessly devoted her life for the public good and for building the nation. So during the breakfast today, for a very brief while, I had the pleasure of meeting Padma Shri Nivedita Bide, and I want to know more about the organization, and hopefully today we'll get glimpses of how this organization has quietly worked behind the scenes to create the kind of impact on the ground. So Nivedita Bide is a devoted life worker and National VP of Vivekananda Kendra, Kanyakumari. So for those of you who may not be aware, and I was not aware till today morning, when the Rock Memorial was established in Kanyakumari, and it was a very unanimous decision across the political spectrum, across the states, that this, and also all the MPs in the Lok Sabha, that this memorial should be established as a mark of appreciation and respect for Swami Vivekananda. It was also decided that let just not a physical memorial be a testimony to the work he has done. So an organization was set up, and today this organization, Vivekananda Kendra, works across all the states, different regions, more than 1,000 centers, maybe tens of thousands of volunteers, full-time, part-time, serving the nation today. So Padma Shri Nivedita Bide main focus is to create the capacity. So what we call in the corporate world as the trainers, basically people who imbibe the knowledge, go and become the force multipliers on the ground. It is her main responsibility. So she's the one who actually creates the capacity to disseminate the information and also serve the nation and create people who can build the nation. And this whole process is all about our spiritual ethos, which we seem to have lost in the process. In the quest for modernization, in the quest for development, we have lost the spiritual ethos. So how do we bring that back? We have a very, very deep-rooted cultural and spiritual legacy which we can't ignore, which has been our source of strength for centuries. To rediscover that and use that as the next stage of nation building is what Vivekananda Kendra is all about. For her stupendous efforts, the government of India recognized her with the Padma Shri Award in 2017, which is India's fourth biggest civilian award. And it is my pleasure to invite Madam Nivedita Bide on stage to talk about the work and the leadership what Vivekananda Kendra brings to the nation. Thank you, Madam.
My namaskars to all. Today, in the whole Leadership Conclave, I know it is more related to industry, commerce and all that. I am here just to, at the request of Shri Ravindranji, and also to share just few thoughts for whatever time is there. You know, in Sanskrit, the leadership is netrutva. It comes from the root word naya. Naya means to carry. Now, if carrying, it means physical carrying, that's not the sense. It is also not herding. Means, as you know, the herd is driven and carried to a direction or a place. Even that is not then expected of human beings. We are human beings. So here the netrutva is always transmitting the vision with which we work, the values. It is I transmit my vision and value, and that person, by owning it, he charts his own direction, which is not in conflict with your direction. But he creates lot of innovative practices because that freedom is there. So this is the first basic thing in leadership, that you transmit the vision and values. Now, how do we transmit? There are only two things in that. One is we practice that. And second thing is, it is the boundless affection, not any expectation, but boundless affection for the persons with which really the vision and values get transmitted. The channel for transmission is only love and respect and nothing else, and your own example. This is what in Vivekananda Kendra, in short, the training is for. That we have to live what we say or what we aim at, and we are here to love all. Because as we know, the whole India is based on vision of oneness. So when we say other, other is not actually other, it is our own extended self. As we say, no, in Akhanda Mandala Karam, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So when I say I, that I is not only body, mind, intellect, but my own expanded self is my family. Still expanded self is my society, nation, and the whole creation. And therefore, naturally, as I take care of myself, I have a duty to take care of my family, my society, my nation, and the whole creation. I cannot say this birth I will take care of only myself and my family. Next birth I will see other collectives. It's not like that. Because we are simultaneously part of the creation, the nation, the society, the family. And therefore, our duty is towards all that. So, fulfilling of that duty is not I am doing some, some great service to you. It's not like that. For example, no one can say, I said, I take bath every day, so please give me certificate. There is no certificate required for that. Similarly, I keep my family, one, happy, value-based. I take care of my society so that it is caring, sharing. I take care of my nation, environment. This is my duty. There is no question of recognition or something like that. In Netrutva, one more thing which is inherent is, in Kendra we sing one song, Yaha Kala Kala Chala Chala Baheti. In that there is, about Ganga it is, in that there is, Hama Isake Lagutama Jalakana, Banate Mitate Hai Kshana Kshana. So, as an individual, I am not immortal, but collectively we are immortal. Today I am there, tomorrow someone else has to come. So, when that someone else has to come, he should take forward for which I have given my life, I have given all my energy, he should take it forward more meaningfully, more powerfully. So, this is what is the second thing. Just now while taking breakfast, a topic came about politics. A political leader doesn't like another leader to come up. He feels insecure. But I am sure in industry at least it is not there. Actually, we should be happy that more and more we leaders create, so that what Atmanirbhar Bharat we are aiming at, we will be able to achieve it. This logo what I was seeing sitting here, I don't know with what thought this logo was made, but I remembered one shloka from Upanishad. In that Upanishad it is like that, a bird sees just exactly like him another bird on the top of the branch sitting very serenely. But this bird is eating fruits, some fruits are bitter, some are sweet, so sometimes he is elated, sometimes he gets agitated. Then he feels, oh how nice it will be if I can sit so serene ways like that bird is sitting. But more and more he goes on eating and then goes higher and higher. Here he realizes actually that was his real self, and what he was doing, that was only the reflected self. So same way, all of us, though we are engaged in, I know all of you must be under so much high tension always, because you are in industry and business. So you are eating lot of bitter and sweet fruits. But also every day, if we have to give a very rooted leadership, we also should be rooted in our being. So we have to remember that Atman, which is always Nitya Shuddha Buddha. That is my real me. So we should get rooted in that and then take the tensions of the whole day. So this is one more part for able to give a very stable and a leadership which does not bend or crack in front of changing situations or challenges, but actually which changes the situation as we want. So these are the few things on which we train our Karyakartas in Vivekananda Kendra. As you know, Vivekananda Kendra is a spiritually oriented organization. When the memorial was getting built up during the centenary celebration of Swami Vivekananda, it was felt that the memorial for Swami Vivekananda, for which all the state government, whatever party was in power, or all the MPs, whichever party he belonged to, they all said this memorial should come, and all state governments contributed for that. So Swami Vivekananda, who is accepted all over, cannot be limited only to a granite memorial, but the real living memorial has to be in the lives of young men and women. And that is how Vivekananda Kendra, a spiritually oriented service mission, was started in 1972. And young men and women, those who want to dedicate their life, they are brought, they are given training, sent to different parts of the country, and they identify the people who want to support such work. And with the help of such people, a lot of activities are taken all over the country. I would just say just one point more would like to share with you. As you know, Vivekananda Kendra since beginning focused on Arunachal Pradesh. Arunachal Pradesh is the most mountainous region, having 98% international border with China, Myanmar and all. So if suppose insurgency starts there, even if whole army goes, nothing can be done. And if Chinese incursion is there, army cannot make out whether he is Chinese or whether he is Arunachali. But the people of Arunachal, if they are nationalist, they can make out a Chinese has entered and they can report to the army. Therefore, Vivekananda Kendra decided that we should work there. In 1962 war, the people of Arunachal did not know whether we are in India or China. That was the condition in those days. But Kendra has done very extensive and intensive work in Arunachal Pradesh, and it is the most aspiring state which wants, we have coined a word, and Arunachal Pradesh is example of that. Development through culture. The real sustainable development is possible only if it is based on cultural values. So that is what Arunachal is example, and the Chief Minister of Arunachal is also very eager if more industries can start there. So any one of you, you really want to think of doing service to very interior, inaccessible areas. Now of course the communications have improved very well in Arunachal Pradesh, mobile works, everything is fine. So you are most welcome to think of Arunachal for further development. So with these few words, and also asking your forgiveness, because I know there are many wonderful lectures here, but I have some commitments, so I have to go. So I will wait up to the first question answer session and then I shall leave. So seeking your forgiveness.
So most of the audience here is from the corporate sector, and when we enter the corporate sector as young executives, we are taught to really shine and also exceed, work harder, make sure that we are better than the next person, right? So that's how you normally come up in the corporate sector. But of course things are changing now. So my question to you is that how can companies and other organizations inculcate the value of our cultural ethos and religious and spiritual ethos to make sure that the employee is an all-rounded personality, and what can an organization like Vivekananda Kendra do in terms of helping these companies to kind of make sure that their development is deep-rooted in our ethos and also all-round and balanced?
While asking the question, there was just one thing you said, we want to compete with the next person. So in that, the first point is that we should, pratispardha is not correct. Competition with others. It has to be always anuspardha. Anuspardha means competing with oneself. What I or we were yesterday, we should be better than that today. because we can never and we should never compete with others. So this is the first thing. Second thing, in our own thing, see, of course we have to perform not only in the interest of our company, but even in the interest of our nation. That is true. But the instrument, that is we should not crack. We should not under, some burden and pressure and stress and strain, something happen. So a sort of regular yoga practice, even if it may be 10 minutes, 15 minutes every day, if something can be thought of, that itself will make a great difference. In Vivekananda Kendra, we conduct yoga pratiman, that is yoga modules for executives, and maybe anyone is interested, sometime we can think of and plan that way.
Hand over a memento to Padma Shri Nivedita Bide for a very inspiring speech. Thank you, ma'am. And those of the companies who really want to kind of take forward some of the suggestions, please let us know. We'll be happy to coordinate and work with Vivekananda Kendra to operationalize some of the suggestions what came out today. Yeah. Okay. From a speaker who talked about the spirit of service and spirit of nation building, we move on to another speaker who has achieved something very similar but in a different sphere. And what he has created is something which is the pride of India. And the Vande Bharat Express, that's what I'm talking about, or the Train 18. That is a project which has really kind of drawn the attention of not just the Indians but also people across the world for the kind of technical prowess and competence which we have demonstrated. Because normally we don't expect this. We believe that most of the innovations, especially in those high-tech areas, come from the West. And we are poor copiers and adopters of those technology. We don't have the capability to leave alone design, even manufacture some of these technologies. But today the Train 18/Vande Bharat project has proven that we are no less compared to the best in the world. And it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce Mr. Sudhanshu Mani, who was the person who led the project, not only the conceptualization but also the successful execution in terms of manufacturing. I'm sure many of you are from the manufacturing domain. A complex piece like this, I'm sure you appreciate the challenges, what it takes to develop something like this, and also manufacturing like this, something like this to the exacting standards what is required. So Mr. Sudhanshu Mani had a very illustrious career spanning about 38 years. And in the Indian Railways Mechanical Engineering Services, which culminated in his last position as the General Manager of the Integral Coach Factory in Perambur, Chennai. A fellow of the Institute of Mechanical Engineers, London, he also worked for 3 years in the Embassy of India in Berlin, when he had the opportunity to interact with some of the most advanced train systems in the world to kind of figure out what it takes to build something like that in India. And his stint there, coupled with his commitment, coupled with his knowledge, and ably assisted by his wonderful team, is what led to the Train 18 project. So this entire history, the entire story is captured in his best-selling book, The Train 18 Story, which I would urge each one of you to go through. What I also found interesting, sir, is you are a polymath. You are not just an engineer and a designer, but also someone who is also interested in poetry. So I found that you have written a book on Mirza Ghalib and Shakespeare. I think that is a kind of balance and that is a kind of different perspectives what I guess makes someone like you excel in the field which is your chosen field. So without much ado, let me welcome Mr. Sudhanshu Mani, and he's going to talk about the railway rolling stock. What are the changing dimensions in India? What has happened since railway started in India, and how things are changing? Welcome on stage, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here thanks to my friend of 35 years, Ms. Indra Menon, whom I don't see here, but she egged on Mr. Ravindran to invite me. Thank you very much. And Ms. Rajshri, who has been talking to me, I've not met her yet. There she is. Changing dimensions in Indian industries. So before I begin, so some of you must have seen the flyer, and if you're expecting me to be funnier than I already am, sorry, Mr. Sinclair, I am not. And you are all learned people, competent people from industry and commerce, and to expect that you will listen to me patiently just because I have a story to tell is like expecting that a bull will not charge you just because you are a vegetarian. I will begin with these wonderful words of the people's president, APJ Abdul Kalam. The dream is not the thing that you see in sleep, but is that thing that does not let you sleep. I'll also remind you, if you have read The Merchant of Venice, of what when Portia says that if to do were as easy as to know what were good to do, chapels had been churches and poor man's cottages, princesses' palaces. In the same vein, if to do were as easy as to come to you here and speak, ... So I will only speak about whatever little I've been able to do with a wonderful team that I was fortunate to have wherever I worked. Proof of the pudding, as I call it. But there are some caveats and qualifications. I'm a railway man for life, not just a railway man for 38 plus 4 years. As a railway man, I have an inherent right to be derailed, so any attempt to derail me is not going to work. I'm not a great speaker, but I do borrow a lot from wisdom down the ages, whom I call my uncles. My great-grand-uncle Kabir, 600 years old. My English uncle, 400 years old, Shakespeare. And my Delhi uncle, 200 years old. Also in the hope that this is, as you know, a very old story. A couple of you met me and told me about the TEDx talk I delivered more than 3 years back. So it's an old wine in a new bottle, same tannin, same terroir, same body. But with the hope that this wine is like men. Men, you know, mostly, except some, mature with age. They don't turn to vinegar, and I hope the story has also matured with age. Indian Railways began, fortunately or unfortunately, as a stratagem of the British to control, manage and subjugate India, which was used by Mahatma Gandhi to unify the country, to kindle the spirit of liberation among Indians. And then came independence, and since then it's been an engine of growth. There was some lull, but this is the time, as we are told, that we enter the Amrit Kal as a resurgent India held by Indian Railways. You see the data here. Only thing I'll bring your attention to is when you say 8.5 billion passengers, which means everybody on the earth travels Indian Railways once a year. 23,000 trains and so on. Why it is at a springboard for quantum growth today is what I'll talk about. And why railways? Don't be hung up about the data I show. You can find so many, but largely railways is 6 to 8 times cleaner and greener than road or air. And that's why for future of this universe, future of our world, railways, you will find this data surprising. So we are far ahead of any other country in terms of electrifying our tracks. Good or bad, this is the decision taken, and very soon we'll reach 100%. No other country has done it. There is always this logic that you are transporting local pollution to the powerhouse. But I do believe that at some point, although it's not very fast at this point, our energy production would be less and less through coal, and therefore this would make us largely future ready. There is also this hype about hydrogen. I call it hype because in Germany they have 14 trains working on hydrogen commercially since 2019. But they are serving the non-electrified track. First they announced a lot of hydrogen trains, then perhaps they realized that it is not gelling with electrification, so the current discourse is only heritage routes, that's Kalka, Shimla, Darjeeling, perhaps Nilgiris and so on. It's something we have to watch, but by and large a great development. I'll now come to what is Make in India, as you know, with 2014 when this government came to power, with the intention to make India a manufacturing hub. Some successes, not too many I would think. Then came COVID. It was rejigged into Atmanirbhar Bharat with the hope that these lions of Make in India would roar into self-reliance. Many measures like collateral-free loans, liquidity infusion, productivity link incentives and so on. Whether it has really succeeded or not is for you to judge. It's a work in progress. In respect of railway rolling stock, I have to tell you something, that we have been importing technology all this along. Everything that moves on track, locomotive, train, crane or anything, has an origin somewhere else in the world through a company. We bring some 30, 40 PKDs, CKDs, then we go through shop floor lectures, classroom lectures, transfer of documents, specifications, drawings, protocols. But in spite of passage of decades, we are not able to make it to the standard we imported. And why is that? Having been involved in all these transfers over my service life, I would think it's because technology, ladies and gentlemen, is largely a creation. And this lives not only in the mind, but the heart of the creator. It is not amenable to transfer. It is an oxymoron. I have to go to one of my uncles and I will translate it for some of you who don't understand Hindi Urdu. मेरे शेर आईना खाने में तेरी बेशुमार अदाओं के. I can go poetic about your beauty, about your multiple aspects of your styles and so on. मेरे शेर आईना खाने में तेरी बेशुमार अदाओं के, मगर ऐसी भी है कोई अदा जो रहेगी सीना एराज में. You do have some elegance, description of which would remain buried in the recesses of my heart. It's not, nobody is going to get access to that, and that's the root. One would think that I have stolen Madam Nivedita's lines if you go through the next couple of slides, but forgive ma'am, I already have it, and that is, you talked about ownership. Absolutely. If you do something of your own in any field, it's not about technology, with ownership and pride. That will make you 110, 120% more than what you are capable of. And that brings us to something ma'am has already spoken about, and that is the question. To do anything, anywhere, what do you need first and foremost? Of course, you need all this, but you need what ma'am has said, is you have to begin with love. You have to love people you work with, those below, those above, your colleagues. You have to love what you do. And you have to love the organization you work for, which expands to your organization, state, country. If you don't love it, quit, unless it's a serious bread and butter issue. Because your primary resource, irrespective of all the artificial intelligence, which is going to create some confusion, I'll come to that. Because the AI, the chat GPT has written much better than I could about Shakespeare and Ghalib. But that besides, still where we live today, human resources is the most important resource. एक लफ्ज़ से मोहब्बत का अदना ये फसाना है. This word, love, has this brief story. सिमटे तो दिले आशिक, फैले तो ज़माना है. This love word has a brief story. If it shrinks, it is the heart of a lover, but if it expands, it is the world. So love whatever you do. It was easy for me because I worked for this organization all my life, and you would remember the scramble for the window seat as the marvel, the wonder, the magic of Indian way of life passed you by. Desolate here, crowded there. Indolence, sloth, hard work, grind, celebration, joy, pathos, mourning. So much so that the journey itself became the objective and not the destination. And unlike the train I'm going to talk about, our trains still have doors which can be opened as the train moves, and as you look back at this snaking train, you would get goosebumps. And still today, unlike an airport or a bus station, the poorest and the richest like you stand next to each other to catch the same train. In The Tempest, Antonio says that travelers never did lie, fools at home condemn them. And I translate it here to say that if you are not enamored by the fantastical view you see from the window of an Indian Railways train, then perhaps you are a prisoner of your own confines and conflicts. That said, I'm not here to talk about this romance. I'm here to talk about this. Why is it that for 70 years, 75 years, the look, the image of our trains has remained the same, what you see on the left of your screen. Even as a child, before I joined Railways, all through my service, I had this angst. And that angst gave birth to a dream that why India cannot have a modern, aesthetically superior, technologically driven, speedier train. It remained an angst, but that's the seed of my story. In government, sorry sir, but in government, the donkeys and the horses move in the same file, and there comes a time for a donkey to be pushed up. So in Indian Railways, general manager is an institution, and everyone aspires to be a general manager. It's not the top post. After that, you can become a member, but 5-10% only make it. And the time for this donkey to be pushed up as general manager came in August 2016. Everyone wants to go and join a zone. Like in Bangalore, you don't have a zone here, you have a division. I was the DRM here in 2010. But the zone is Hubli. So you like to go to a zone because it's a fiefdom. But there are 4 factories also where there is a general manager. I chose to go to Integral Coach Factory, Chennai. And it was easily afforded that because it's not a popular posting. In 1950s, set up as a dream of Jawaharlal Nehru to make India a manufacturer of current technology. But dream, unless backed by a vision and action plan, has no meaning. Railwaymen like me gave no vision or action plan. We kept manufacturing more of the same, expansion, much more numbers and so on. This gentleman in the center with garland is Chow and Lai, who came to in 1955 to Chennai and wrote in the visitors book, what you see on the right is every Orient should be proud of this factory, and I want Chinese engineers to come and learn from Indians here. And where have we reached? Where have we reached? We go to China to learn from them because they have left us behind in every field. I recently read a cartoon in a German magazine, and if some of you know German, I'll translate it. It said, Bevölkerung, Indien überholt China. And there was a picture of an Indian train with people inside, outside, on top, here and there, with an Indian flag overtaking a swanky Chinese train. In bad taste, but we must wonder why we have reached there. I will begin with what is a train set. So you know a conventional train which has coaches and locomotives and so on. But a train set has no locomotives. It's the same shape of train all over, only 2 cabs, all equipment mounted under. You can pass from one coach to another through that sealed gangway without feeling that you are crossing a train, unlike our vestibules, which is not even good, rickety vestibule for old people and children. And this is the trend, 25-30 years all over the world in this speed range to make train sets, but why we don't have that? The reason is on the right of your screen. We have departments. So department wrangling as to who will be the Maibap, the owner of this train, because it's neither a locomotive nor a train. So departments fighting. What the country needs is given a go by. And then, of course, you see this gentleman at bottom. There is always an import lobbyist. We cannot make it that good, so keep importing. Actually, nothing happened. Procrastination and debate is what happened. I simply was told not to interfere with production by the second in charge, because I said, you are a 10,000 crore enterprise with 12,000 workers. You do other things that you want to. Don't come and interfere with production. So these are the measures I took. Because of time constraint, I'm not going to get into the detail. I'll only show the top one on the right is a family tree, where the janitor used to keep his brooms and buckets, threw it out, built this tree. It's nothing but 12,000 faces, nobody bigger or smaller. And this became a selfie point for people to come with their family. The belongingness it gave to people in that organization was phenomenal. Tamil people, as it is, are a little emotional. It gave me great dividends. What you see in the middle is because I had no work. I would just take a stroll. There was 2 factories and meet people, thrust myself at them. Now, GM is a ceremonial post. He goes to the factory for ceremonies. Here I was walking every day. They would not have known the name of the GM, let alone his face. But I would go and ask them only one question, which I was told never to ask, because I'll be flooded with replies of all kinds. And the question was, any problem? And believe me, 99.5% of the time answer was, no problem, sir. And if there was a problem related with lighting or toilet or something, there was somebody following me to attend it then and there. But what it did was simple act of love, empathy, breaking protocols, hierarchy, propriety, which Britishers have taught us. We have not invented it, but we still go along with that. I'm reminded of an incident. Navidita ji talked about leaders, so I'll talk about a couple of leaders. You remember in Parliament once Rahul Gandhi ji went and hugged the Prime Minister. You remember? So what did Modi ji say? So Modi ji said, आज पता लगा कि गले लगने और गले पड़ने में क्या फर्क होता है. I would go and gale pado these people. These are the measures I took. I'm not going to get into those details, but I must tell you about the image you see at the bottom. So we have this sexual harassment, gender-based discrimination, and the government has taken care, I don't know about private sector, by installing the mechanism of VUCA, which means inquiry, deposition. You go with a view to punishing that gentleman. I said, I'm the administrator of this factory. I'm not the Chief Justice of India. Administration and justice can go together only to some extent. If such a thing is reported to me, or comes into my ears, or if any officer learns of it through word of mouth, and you would, if you're alive, I'll give myself 4 hours to determine if the complaint is genuine, because there may be some false complaints occasionally. And if I find that the complaint is genuine, I give myself another 4 hours to throw out the gentleman. Throw out? The government of India empowers you to throw out people if you can record that an inquiry is not possible. And I would say that I would record an inquiry is not possible because in our culture, I don't want the lady concerned to relive that horror once again in the inquiry. We threw out 4 such people, and the message it sent to the lady employees was phenomenal. They came and said, we have been employed as technicians, fitters, welders, and these men make us do, they help us job, because it's a man's world in this factory. I said, what can I do? He said, we'll make our gangs and prove to these fellows that we can do better. And they made so many gangs, plumbing, computers, assembly, so many things. But what I want to show you is these 29 Chennai women aged 23 to 57, supervised by a lady supervisor. through heavy lifting, welding and fitting work, building a railway coach entirely on their own. Their output was, if not better, definitely equal to men. So no organization is going anywhere if it does not respect its women as complete equals, not as a lip service, but in practice. With these measures, I'm also reminded of Jane Austen's word, which says, "Too many cooks spoil the broth." I said, I'm not going to induct one single man in my 2.5 years. We are 12,000 by the time I leave. I want to make it 10,000. Because we are overstaffed. Through productivity measures and through the measures I told you, you'll be amazed to see, because of the wonderful work of the team, the number of men required for making a coach actually came down from 8.2 to as low as 2.5, as the production of coaches went more than double. In this, anywhere, especially in our country, we have so many concerns because so many things don't work. All around you can see, go out, traffic is bad, policing is bad, drainage is bad. But we are so much consumed by these concerns that in this large circle, there is that small circle, which is your circle of influence, that we forget to do something about that. There's a Chinese saying which says, light your own candle, why curse darkness? Because then you can remove the darkness around you. You can't possibly remove the darkness all around you. Even Modi ji does not have a circle of influence as big as the circle of concerns. Shikwa zulmat shab se kahin behtar tha. Shikwa complained, zulmat darkness shab evening. शिकवाए जुल्मत शब से कहीं बेहतर था कि अपने हिस्से की एक क्षमा जलाते जाते. The time to light my candle was there because more of the same, 4,000 coaches, 50,000 coaches built, now which is touching 70,000, arguably the biggest factory in the world, doing more of the same. Light my torch to do something new out of the box, and then I come to the president saying of that dream. You see, we all tell our youngsters, go and live your dream. I mean, we live our life without living a dream, but tell our youngsters to go and live our dream. I say, don't live your dream, look after your family, your bread and butter, your earning and so on. But don't let that dream die. Let it linger. Let it not be extinguished. Let it be there in the corner. Believe me, you will get an opportunity someday to realize that dream. And that time to light my torch and live my dream had presented to me as the leader of this great factory in Chennai. After that, it was a story of 2-3 things. What I wrote in earlier slides, maybe I'll go back to it. I still have 11 minutes. One thing is, I was told when everyone was excited, wonderful team. You see, I had the opportunity, I had the vision, I had the fortune. A great team of engineers and staff was bequeathed to me, not my doing, raring to go. Ennui written all over the face, doing more of the same. They had the technical chutzpah, the audacity to do something new. It was easy when we said we want to build this 180, 160 kilometer train set. Yes, but one doubt. You may be a great GM with a lot of powers, but you need a sanction because a new type of train, you have to get the sanction of the ministry. I said, I'm your leader, I'll get it, but foolhardy I was, met with so much of negativity, cynicism, skepticism. They thought I was spinning a yarn, trying to build publicity for myself. From December 2016 right up to April 2017, sanction was not forthcoming. Then I went to the chairman. I had worked with him. He was the GM Hubli earlier. I was the DRM Bangalore. I told him, you think we can do it? He said, yes, I think. But other board members are not letting me do it. I said, you are the GM. You are the chairman. You import whatever you want, who am I to stop you? But we will build this train at 1/3 the cost. That excited him a little bit. And then I did something which is all a matter of pride and vanity. You see, pride enhances you so much that you look at everyone with happiness. Vanity diminishes you. You look at everyone to belittle them, to elevate yourself. I told him, I'm going to grab your feet and not leave it till you give me the sanction. People ask me, did you actually do it? Bless his soul, the chairman, Mr. Mittal, is no more between him and me. But it's the spirit. You see, by grabbing his feet, I was enhancing my pride, because I would come back with a sanction to my team to get them going. And by grabbing his feet, I was killing my vanity, which one of you would kill anyway someday, so why not kill it yourself today? Another thing was, they said you'll spend these 200 crores and if the train doesn't work, first time we are trying to do it, who will be the scapegoat? I said, I am retiring in December 18, that's another 21 months from now. Which better scapegoat than me? But if you succeed, you will bask in that glory for the rest of your life, of having given to the country what it has been waiting for 30 years. That worked. Of course, that bit of what will they do to a retired person was wrong. Actually, they tried to do something. They didn't succeed. That's another matter. And one last thing is, our doubts are traitors, my uncle has said, which make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt. गिरते हैं शह सवार ही मैदान जंग में, वो तिफल क्या गिरे जो घुटनों के बल चले. We are afraid of failures. Why? Because our successes are measured by outcome. Success has to be measured by the effort, the commitment, the intention. Once you have done that, you have succeeded. You may fail once, but it's nothing but a stepping stone to a future success. All this work, ladies and gentlemen. One last thing, they said that you are retiring in December 18. We have 21 months. Normally a project of this magnitude takes 36 to 42 months. By the time you retire, drawings would have been ready, but manufacture would not have started. The new leader may say, why are you purchasing this trouble? Do more of the same. Where would we be? I said, that problem is genuine and I have a solution. And the solution is, our minds may not be where the German or the Japanese mind is. But we are Indians, we can burn our midnight oil. I used to say we can work like donkeys. We'll do that, burn our midnight oil and do something which has never been done earlier in the world. And that is, turn this train out before December 18 in 21 months. And to remind everyone that the train is indeed going out in calendar year 2018, we are giving it a name now, and the name given was Train 18. After that, it was just a story of hard work, commitment, hitches, glitches, but synergy and solution every time every time something presented itself. The hard work of the team members and their commitment and their skill saw to it that the train lived up to its name once again, and it got completed in exactly 18 months and was unveiled in ICF in October of 18. Later it was turned out, tested in all parameters, and it was launched by the Prime Minister Modi himself as the Vande Bharat Express between Varanasi and New Delhi. There are three things that I would say before I conclude this story and come for 3, 4, 5 minutes about the future in railway. It was just a train. As one of you mentioned, it was not Mangalyaan or Chandrayaan, just a train. Why did it get so much of attention? It's something that we had never hoped for. We didn't work for that. We look back and think it's because the way the train looked, not the technology and the speed, the acceleration, and people looked at it. Above all this, all Indians, travelers, non-travelers, looked at it as a symbol, as something India had made for itself, India's own baby. And Prime Minister puts it more beautifully, because he speaks about this train every 15th August, and every time he launches, he has launched all the trains till now, I think 18 of them, which perhaps speaks something about the train. And he says, it is a symbol of resurgent and aspirational India. I conclude by saying two things about this story, then I'll come to the future. Is the joy, as my uncle has said, that the joy's soul lies in the doing things one are done. True, it was wonderful living those moments, working for this project. But every time people like Mr. Ravindran invite me, I am afforded that joy once again, living that story. So thank you very much. And thanks to people like you, 1,000, a million such projects are possible in this country. All it needs is leadership with empathy, passion, and a sense of purpose. From that high, I have to come down to something more prosaic. As you see, it will change the very face of passenger travel in India. These visuals, which is merely 5% of what is going to happen in the next 3-4 years. And you can understand, I need not go into this, because these are pictures which are already available as more and more trains get built. But is it this train alone? No, we have to look more holistically. I'll not go into these graphs because of shortage of time, but financially, if you look at railways, its performance is quite abysmal. The operating ratio, which is expenditure upon the earnings, is around 100. Sometimes manipulated to bring 100 and so on, which is of course a very bad sign because leaves you no money to invest. But the government believes something else. The government believes that Indian Railways, or railways as such, is the engine for India's growth, and it will nevertheless invest heavily into railways because it's good for the economy. So what used to be 50,000 crore or so in 2014 has reached unbelievable level of 2.6 to 2.7 lakh crores. It is something which is happening, so it's no point debating pros and cons here. But what needs to be done is this 28% share in commodity basket, which concerns all of you for logistics, is something which has to be attacked very seriously. Something is, what used to be 80% has come down to 28%, 27%. And road is 64%, as you know. And more better roads are being built by Mr. Gadkari than railways are bringing tracks. That's also true. But national logistics policy, which I can't go into detail, has attempted to address this problem. More and more terminals are coming up. And we do hope sincere work is done in this direction, because the logistics cost in India is about 13-14% of the GDP. It has to come down below 10% for a country which hopes to be a developed country in the Amrit Kal. More and more needs to be done about that. About rolling stock, so for shortage, I don't want to burst my time, I'll not get into it, but unprecedented tenders have been floated. Last year, some 30,000 crores for wagons, 50,000 crores for Vande Bharat equivalent trains ordered on Titagarh wagons and TMH of Russia, which is in somewhat trouble, but I hope it will be resolved. Only yesterday, the bids for aluminium trains, then there's this locomotive awarded to Siemens at US $3 billion to be built at Dahod. And then what I have told you about this one, 200 trains over the course of next 5-6 years. The one where I say tech bid opened, yesterday the financial bid was opened, and Alstom has given a very good price of 150 crores per train. So I expect another 30,000 crore order to be placed for aluminium Vande Bharat, which in my view is the future. This is backdoor privatization, whether you agree with me or not, whether it's right or wrong, it's backdoor privatization, because privatization is a bad word. So what they have done is invite the private sector to come and build in railway premises. If this government stays, my belief is that we are going towards privatization. We can debate that separately, but what it means for private industry is that it's no longer a government tender which only looks at L1 and looks at some eligibility and so on. The quality takes a nosedive. It's not going to happen anymore when Alstom's, TMHS, Titagarh, Siemens, Medha, others build trains. So, for any company which believes in quality products, it's a great time to come in Amrit Kal. These are the key players. Metro is seeing phenomenal growth. 25 cities already to have it unsanctioned or construction. By the time we, as I called Amritsar, by 2047, when I do believe it's not a question whether we are going to be a developed country. We have to believe that we will be a developed country in 2047 and work backwards. There are questions about dignity and so on. Metro is going to be in another 25 cities by this, at least 50 of them. So that's another great investment opportunities. And now I have already said that things were not done. But I would close with these wonderful words of Iqbal, is that सितारों के आगे जहाँ और भी हैं, इश्क के इम्तिहान अभी और भी हैं. Thank you very much. Thank you. I will take 1 minute more, and that is, I told you something about what happened after retirement. There was a bit of a negativity, all that is over. We were never afraid because my uncle has said that, goodness is never fearful. And honesty, there's no honesty as rich. There's no legacy as rich as honesty. It gave us so much strength that we were never worried. But during that lull, I was writing this book, and there were two purposes. Was to tell the story, and number two, I was getting all the attention. I'm here because I was the leader of the team. I'm there all over, really. Everyone is giving me a lot of love and appreciation, perhaps except the government. Doesn't matter. But what about the wonderful team that I had? Every one of them were so committed and hardworking. They are unknown and unsung. So I thought it was my duty to call out their names one by one and record their contribution, which I believe I have been able to do in this book, which is available on Amazon. It's called My Train 18 Story. I have no commercial interest in it, but I do hope some of you will read it and love it. And it is my pleasure to present one copy to Mr. Ravindran today.
So, you can stay on the stage, please. We have actually many questions, but I guess I'll have time only for one. I think a fantastic story of how ordinary people coming together with a single-minded vision can deliver extraordinary things. Thanks for sharing this wonderful story, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So there are a couple of questions, and you may choose to pass this question because it may sound a bit controversial, but let me go ahead and ask it.
Never happened.
So the questions which have come, two of them are, when there is so much progress to be done and so much of investment to be done to modernize the train system for the common man, what is the need for a bullet train under these circumstances?
Wonderful.
So what is the need for a bullet train and what purpose does it serve?
Absolutely. So I'll say that if by that logic you don't need planes, by that logic you don't need Volvo buses, but the point is well taken. But it's a very important point. If we are going to be a developed country in 2047, are we going to carry people like we do? Like sardines in general compartment? Are they not Indians? Just because they pay less? Will you ever see that kind of thing in a developed country? More thought is required towards that, to answer your question. While bullet trains and Vande Bharat is all fine, has to be done, it's a sign of progress. And to become a global leader. But more thought has to go into how you carry your people. So if you believe that you are going to carry them with dignity, and by giving them dignity, you are giving dignity to yourself, you have to work backwards. You have to make in our weather, you have to make every train air conditioned. You have to make it affordable for common man without increase of fare today. Someday, when we are developed, they'll have 4 to 5 times wealth in their pocket, and they'll be able to afford it. Today, we have to, inescapable, look after these people much more if we have to be a developed country, and I believe we have to be. So very good question. While these things are not mutually exclusive or contradictory, much more attention is needed towards how we carry common Indians. Thank you.
May I request the office bearers to kindly come on stage, and Mr. Prashant Reddy, Managing Director of Fundermax and one of our proud sponsors, to come on stage and hand over a memento to Mr. Mani.
While I thank Mr. Sudhanshu Mani for his wonderful speech this morning, he readily agreed to my request to be present here. And while he also appreciated BCIC's good work and presented his book as a mark of respect, and to reciprocate the gesture, I am presenting the book written by me called ACBC, which is After Corona, Before Corona, but slightly outdated, sir. It was published in the first few months of COVID, 2020, by me and my wife. It's After Corona, Before Corona, shortened as ACBC. This for you, sir, signed by me.
I'll finish it before I reach like.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to another brand which is a household name in India, right? So I'm sure most of you heard of what is TTK Prestige, right? And the next speaker is someone who has played a very key role and an instrumental role to make sure that the brand is a well-known brand across the country. So from a regional brand, a regional player, Mr. Chandru Kalro took this brand and made it into a national brand. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Chandru Kalro. He is a managing director at TTK Prestige. So Mr. Kalro is an electronics engineer with about 38 years of experience in various companies, mostly in the electronics and appliances industry. So he has been helping TTK Prestige and making this into a household name and increasing the share. So in his stint in Prestige, he actually grew the company 20x. And that is a kind of growth and track record which many corporate executives aspire to deliver when they work in companies. And he has been able to achieve that. And he is going to talk about consumer durables, the discretionary and non-discretionary spends in growing market, and what is the leadership required to kind of capitalize on this opportunity. So there is a lot of growth in this segment, but there is also a lot of competition. So what it takes to achieve the leadership. So Mr. Kalro, looking forward to hearing you on how you actually navigate this market and achieve leadership.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I thank BCIC for giving me the opportunity and the platform. And must say that after coming to speak after Ms. Bide and Mr. Sudhanshu Mani, it's a very difficult task. I do not have the finesse of Mr. Mani and his knowledge, neither do I have the wonderful vibe that Mr. Bide comes with, and connecting us with that wonderful vibe. But I'll try. Just a correction, Prestige was not a regional brand, it was a national brand, but very under-leveraged outside the South. I merely recognized that and got it out of there. It was far bigger than what it was actually doing at that time. Okay, so I come back to the topic, which has been given as consumer durables, discretionary and non-discretionary. I will begin with saying that the word leadership has never been more relevant, because I don't know, in the morning when I was coming, I was very happy to see that we are going to actually have a current account surplus last quarter. It's saying something about where India is going. 2 days ago in the newspaper, we read that while most countries are trying to move supply chains out of China, 86% of those countries are considering India as one of their supply chain points, which is the maximum that is there. So you see these kind of things every day, and I think India is at a great position today, and Mr. Mani just merely reminded us of our potential in his wonderful speech. I'll just start by some facts on consumers. This was a very recent study that was done, which is the People's Research on India's Consumer Economy. It's called PRICE. This was a very large study which was done in between April and October 2021. 242,000 households, which is a very, very large sample size. I think you must have seen this in the papers. I'm just putting it here as a context. 120 towns, 800 villages across 100 districts. And the entire thing was about India's middle class, which is extremely well known across the world, making us an extremely important and attractive market for attracting investments ever since we liberalized. Some of the things that you see, it's no longer a pyramid. The traditional way of looking at the demographic of India as a pyramid, where in this they are calling it destitutes, aspirers, middle class, and rich. The destitutes, as you can see, in 2015-16 are a very small number of households, 209, and this is not the poor country that we knew a long time ago. And 2020-21 that shrunk. The aspirers have stayed where they are, and you can see that the middle class is actually growing, and the rich have also grown. And it's estimated that between 30-31, the aspirers will come down along with the destitutes, and the middle class will actually grow substantially. And by 46-47, the 25 years at the end of the Amrit Kal, as you can see, you're talking about the middle class, the aspirers and destitutes being a very small percentage of this country. This has great implications for consumption in this country, for the way things happen. And I think the Amrit Kal is well named by our Prime Minister, and he has indeed inspired us to see the facts in front of us so that we can actually achieve much more than what others think that we can achieve. Now, the middle class today is a very aspiring target audience. These are people who are no longer just buying cheap products, as people think we are, but we will always be value seeking. Now, where does India's rich middle class and destitutes live? If you see through this, the consuming population are actually available across population strata. So you know this fact that we think that the rural India does not consume, or rural India, there is a tendency in the urban counterpart to look down almost on the rural counterpart, which is not true. I mean, we in TTK, we operate through some MFI organizations in rural India, and we can tell you that a typical rural customer never says, give me cheap. They say, give me something good, so that I don't have to go again after anything. Give me something good. So I think we must respect this rural customer. And you can see that even the rich and the sheer rich are available everywhere. The consuming class is across, which is why what you're seeing today as what is happening due to the e-commerce, and today almost 100% of PIN codes are serviced by e-commerce, and everybody can be reached, giving us that reach. Now, this is an interesting thing. This unfortunately is true because life is never very equitable. But nevertheless, there's some statistics for you. 35% of the population accounts for 73% of the income, and 65% of the spends, and 99% of all savings. It's a very interesting line. The fact that 65 or 2/3 of the spends are coming from the middle class or the rich, And almost all savings are coming from that side. Which is why the moment there is an inflation, there is so much of noise. Because they are not able to go beyond their day-to-day needs or their non-discretionary expenses. Now this brings me back to the subject. If you look at ownership, here's where the opportunity in India existed and always exists. We are highly underpenetrated for most durables. In spite of everything, and this number today has been a serious improvement over what it was, say, 10 years ago. But you can see that a refrigerator is not available in more than half the households in India. And this is where, the word discretionary and non-discretionary can become a little playful. What is non-discretionary for me? I need a refrigerator in my house, for God's sake. Is discretionary for more than half the people. And therefore this, this word of discretionary versus non-discretionary is a little bit, it moves around a bit. Of course, the air conditioners are only available with 4% of the households. But that is, okay, understandable. But like Mr. Mani said, he would love to see the day when every Indian is carried around in an air-conditioned train, because we deserve it. Now, India, the word 5 seems to be trending for us. We are the 5th largest economy. We are the only large economy that grows above 5% for the next few years. We will be the 5th largest consumer durables market and is one of the largest growing electronics market in the world. And that's a fact. The key triggers, of course, being the infrastructure push, which is making the roads and the trains happen, which means that companies like ours can go and reach the hinterland and not wait for those poor customers to get onto a bus and go to the nearest town to buy. Today they are able to buy sitting in the comfort of their homes. E-commerce is helping that as well. There is energy sufficiency in many parts or most parts of the country. The education levels are increasing, and internet is expanding exposure to various kind of products in the durable spectrum. And therefore there is growth. Believe me, no Indian company should look at less than a high double-digit growth or a nearly 20% growth if they want to stay leaders or even stay relevant. It has never been a better time than this. Short term, you can see ups and downs. The pandemic has moved things around. The pandemic has created all kind of issues. You have a roaming share of wallet. So today they are buying kitchen products. Tomorrow they are going on travel. But it will all, kind of stabilize. But the fact remains that India is an extremely fast-growing, aspirational market. Now, discretionary spends are what I term as wants. They're not needs, they're wants. And they are largely driven by aspirational needs of the customer rather than core necessities. Of course, non-discretionary are needs. These are not negotiable. Everyone will require a pressure cooker. Sorry to bring about TTK, I can't, resist that. But look, schemes like Ujjwala, 9.2 crore households which were using biomass are now having access to LPG. And I don't know whether you know, one cooking session with biomass in a chulha is equal to smoking 20 cigarettes. And it is that which our Prime Minister tried to solve by giving them access to LPG. Unfortunately, the program has not delivered fully because many of them cannot afford the 1,000 rupees to be paid for a cylinder. And in fact, I was talking to the government 2 weeks ago, and they are looking at giving them induction cooktops to see whether they can, still solve the problem of the indoor air pollution. But what this will do is actually open up these kitchens for a lot of new products into those kitchens. We did a survey, for example, with rural women and asked them what they like and what are their aspirations. And some of the most interesting replies came. They said, I would consider my house as affluent if I can put a cup of tea to a guest in 5 minutes. Because with my chula, it takes 20 minutes. To you and me, it doesn't matter. She said, I would consider it a promotion if I can stand up and cook on a platform rather than sit on the floor. Things that you and I take for granted. Believe me, these people are ready to consume. These people are ready to consume. India is going to be one of the fastest growing large economies for the next few years. And with this rising middle class, aspirations will redefine this discretionary basket, because their needs are going to stay where they are, and as they become more affluent, they will consume more. The balance will go towards travel, will go towards getting more durables in the house, and all those things. And as I was giving you the example, understanding this change at an emotional level, which is the example I gave you of, will make the difference between winning companies and losing companies. It's the only way to stay relevant. India is at the cusp indeed. Brand India is now stronger than ever before. I have traveled abroad, I'm sure all of you have, and the way people look at us today, I haven't seen 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Exports are an opportunity both from an international business perspective and from a domestic business perspective. Because when you export to the developed countries, like Mr. Mani was talking about, getting trains from outside, but we were not able to really get it to their level. But if we manage to think of how much we will raise our own standards in this country for our customers, because if we are willing to do that for our foreign customers, we will be able to do that and deliver that to our customers. And that will bring growth of a very different level. Because now people will have much better experiences with the products they use at prices which are more reasonable, because now we will have scale. So exports for me is not an opportunity as exports, but as an India opportunity. And the fact that 86% are considering us is great news. And therefore, this will drive consumption and adoption of new categories. I mean, how many people thought that an air fryer in our industry would even be relevant in India? But people are buying it. So as I said, it will deliver scale and supply chain ecosystems. Last week, I was reviewing my factory in Coimbatore, and we are not able to find labor in Coimbatore. The Coimbatore and Tirupur ecosystem is now going to fly labor from Bihar because they're having jobs there. Now that's a very good thing. It's extremely nice to hear it while we are going through some trouble, but this is very good. India has several advantages. I mean, it's a captive domestic market. I always tell my people, if there's an export inquiry, invest in it. If they don't buy it, we will sell it in India. And I think that is how we can build that scale. We have a demographic advantage, very obviously. There's this substantial infrastructure push. The Make in India, I think, I'm very proud to say this, that TTK Prestige at one time had 30% of its revenues coming from goods that we were trading from China. And 3 years ago, we were the first in our industry to say, we will not buy finished goods from China, we will make in India. And believe me, we moved the entire thing here. We're today making it cheaper than that. Today, in our industry, it is not an option to buy from China. And we are glad we led that. The geopolitical stress is a stress, but it's an opportunity for us, because India has no enemies this time. India is truly non-aligned this time and setting its own agenda. And therefore, I believe to any person who's in industry, this is the time to invest. This is the time for private capex to pick up. This is the time to compliment the government, not as in heap praises on it, but actually compliment their efforts in building capability and scale, in reinforcing a strong culture of delivery right first time and on time. And this, I think, is a place where us included and most Indian industry included needs to be cognizant of and deliver. And this is something that obviously all of us are grappling with. There is AI at one level, but I think technology is evolving, and if one even blinks today, can lose the game. In our industry, in our own space, TTK Prestige in the last 1 year has started launching smart products. And we believe that smart products will be relevant as long as they are delivering genuine value to the customer, not for the sake of being a gimmick. We as an industry will have to reskill ourselves, reinvent ourselves, and stay relevant. Businesses, after the pandemic more so, must be resilient to weather volatility and take advantage of the opportunity. We are in a 20,000 crore market. TTK Prestige is by far number one. I will stop here. I'm not making an ad space for TTK Prestige. We are also the most profitable. We have emerged as the true mass premium brand in this space because we are able to do something which most others don't do. I'll just share that with you. All we do is listen and find pain points, find a solution which is innovative, create, segment, and grow categories. We don't milk categories. We create categories. And we communicate and establish sustained value. It's a philosophy, and our purpose is always customer first. We go beyond being transactional. Stakeholder value in all activities. When the pandemic first hit and the first lockdown, I'm proud to say that we paid every single creditor on time while there was a lockdown. I mean, it's important that we understand that there is an ecosystem that we are in. Sustain that strong culture by communicating our values. The first three of those actually stand for TTK: trust, transparency, and knowledge, and an ethical engagement to build long-term relationships. We build products based on our market research on 4 themes: health, convenience, time saving, and aesthetic. And for anybody who's in durables, let me tell you, these are the 4 things that are most relevant to most consumers. It's stuck. Time's up. Thank you very much. By the way, how many slides did I have? I think there was a thank you there somewhere.
No, thank you. That's okay. You mentioned it anyway.
That was a very interesting perspective on how the consumption patterns and demographics are driving consumption. So my question to you is very simple. For a brand like TTK, which has invested phenomenal amount of energy, time to build the brand and also to build the channels, nowadays we see a lot of upstart companies which have very low entry barriers. They can go to China and import finished goods, which you have consciously chosen not to do. They are addressing the digital natives. They are now have access to channels like digital to tap this. So how does a strong brand, a strong legacy brand like TTK address these challenges, and what lessons would you share with some of the companies here who face similar challenges in their industry?
No, as I said, I mean, you have to engage with customers. You have to not transact with them. You have to build relationships. And I think you have to have an emotional connect. Everything rational, all things being equal, finally I think the emotion will take over in anything, and that is something we genuinely believe in, and I think that is what has made our brand stand the test of time and stand all these new challenges.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
May I request the office bearers and Mr. A.V. Srinivasan kindly come on stage to hand over a memento to Mr. Kalro. In my opinion, and I'm sure an opinion which many of you will share, actually transformed our road travel, especially the bus travel, right? So, and also the truck travel, the truck movements. So these are the two things which I noticed. I mean, when somebody talks about Volvo, of course, a lot of people associate Volvo with safety, but from an Indian context, I used to run supply chain for an apparel company, and it used to be held to get the goods cleared at ICD Bangalore. And the Volvo trucks were a delight for customers like me, for the truck operators, for the drivers. Those days air-conditioned trucks, which was seen as a luxury, because we all believed that it is drivers perform best when they operate at 45 degrees temperature. So this company transformed the technology and transformed the way we travel and transformed the way we transport goods on the road. So, and Mr. Mani was talking about road travel has a 65% share. So I guess Volvo has a big role to play in that, to make sure that this share is taken away from the railways. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. So let me introduce Mr. Kamal Bali, President and Managing Director, Volvo Group India. Mr. Bali is an engineer from IIT Roorkee with 40 plus experience in the automotive industry. And for his excellent services to promote trade between Sweden and India, Mr. Bali was actually knighted by their majesties, the King and the Queen of Sweden, with the Commander, which is an award in the Royal Order. And many institutions, the Times of India has recognized him as the Machinist Lifetime Award, Achievement Award for his excellent contribution to the growth of manufacturing sector in India. And he also serves on the board of many institutions, including XIM Bhubaneswar, IIT Gandhinagar, the Swedish Chamber of Commerce, CII, etc. So, welcome to the stage, sir. Look forward to a very inspirational talk from you. And he is going to talk about making in India, why and how India holds an edge and potential in manufacturing.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think, and thank you very much for that very generous introduction for both my company and myself. So thank you very much. I think there have been very inspiring presentations before I have come in. I think both by Mr. Mani and Mr. Kalro, I think you shared some excellent data points on consumer behavior, and some of which were absolutely eye-openers for people who are not engaged with consumers per se. So thank you very much for doing that. I have a tough topic. Why I say I have a tough topic? I have a topic to say that why and how India holds an edge and potential in manufacturing. We all know, well, of course, we have the potential. There is no doubt about it. But this potential has been there for the last 25, 30 years. We have been at 15 to 17% of GDP. Manufacturing has always been 15 to 17% of GDP, and with successive governments, industry bodies trying to pitch this number to 25%, needle hasn't moved much. We have stuck between 15 to 17 for the last 25 years. So why is it that it will now move? Why the next 5 to 7 years we are saying that we will hit 25% of GDP. So that's the topic, and given to me, I think it's an interesting topic. I had to do some real thinking as to why it will happen. Actually, it's a very, very good point. And thank you BCIC for really thinking through such interesting topics. And thank you Mr. Ravindran, Dr. Ravindran, for having me here. So what I'm going to do over the next 17 minutes I have, right? Over the next 17 minutes, I will try to crack the code and try to decode how it will happen. So I think first things first, that India to become a manufacturing powerhouse is no more an ambition, it is a necessity. Without we getting there at 25% of GDP or around that number, it can be 30, it can be 22, but without manufacturing becoming a very significant part of our total economy, I think it's going to be a very, very difficult journey, because manufacturing has a multiplier effect, and it provides stability to economy. Services is great. India has about 52% of our economy comes from services. It's very good, and it's great that it is there. But I think services can be, it has a vulnerability when it comes to economic downturns and many other things. So it's very, very important that manufacturing, and for a country like of India size, 1.4 billion people, you can't simply have economy working on one leg. You have agriculture, you have manufacturing, you have services. India has to fire on all cylinders. If we want to create 90 million jobs over the next 7 to 8 years, we need to fire on all cylinders, whether it is agriculture, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is services. So manufacturing has to play its role, because one job in manufacturing creates 2.5 to 3 jobs in services. So that's very, very critical. So let me try to track what happened. After the independence, say from 1950 to 1990, let me take this 40-year block. India tried to create its own manufacturing model. They created some large business houses, family houses, and some PSUs to really work on the core sector industry. And they did create some sort of a manufacturing, and that's how you saw some large PSUs come up, and some of them are even existing today. But this was also associated with license Raj, with complete socialistic outlook, with price controls, with price controls, with norms for manufacturing, with license Raj, leading to terrible inefficiencies, uncompetitiveness, and also corruption. So I think that is what happened between 1950 to 1990. And we missed the bus. In the meanwhile, China really took advantage of this huge gap in the Asian part of the world, and they really took off, and a lot of the Western world really made China their manufacturing factory. So I think that's something which happened. The 1950 to 1990 period was a period where we could have done some things right, I think, but we went all wrong there, I think. So 1990, 1992 rather, the liberalization process started. We opened up we realized too late, we had no option, and thanks to that government, I think they were very, very good, and I would say inspiring and bold reforms which happened. We opened up India to the outside world. Technology started coming in. Indian companies were made to compete with the foreign companies. So we really moved several notches up. Several new products came in. We got access to many outstanding products. So I think a lot of stuff happened from 1990 to until 2010, 2013, 2014. A lot of stuff happened, but still it was not. Our peers had moved several notches above. So even that fell short, whatever we did, because there were issues. Manufacturing requires a few things very, very clearly. I think the reforms, when it comes to ease of doing business, the logistics infrastructure to move goods from point A to point B. India has logistics cost of almost 14 to 15% of GDP, whereas the global average is 7 to 8%. And we missed out there. So those things didn't happen. Also the internal, while external reforms happened in 1992, internal reforms did not happen at GST level, at the local VAT, GST, PLI schemes. I think a lot of these things did not happen. So fortunately, we are now at a stage where a new direction has been sought out, and I think this government has really taken note of some of the challenges, and they know what exactly needs to be done. So therefore, we are working on several fronts. For instance, infrastructure push. You have the PM Gati Shakti Yojana, which is completely with a digital backbone. You have 600 layers of information. So you know connectivity with multimodal connectivity levels, and I think you will you will fix things once for good. You will not fix things piecemeal. So I think that's one thing which will help you. Then there is a national logistics policy which has come in. And a lot of work is happening there, where there is a mission to bring this to 8 to 9% of our GDP, the logistics cost. So I think that's going to happen big time. Then, of course, there are very, very clearly, we believe, 3 pillars which are really going to drive this manufacturing to 25% of our GDP and the growth. I think the first one is the domestic ecosystem. The domestic ecosystem, I mean the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, the digital infrastructure, the local level infrastructure, the policies, ease of doing business, cost of doing business, speed of doing business. Manufacturing should not get any disadvantage in India. So I think a lot of things have happened. Today our corporate tax rates are one of the lowest in the world, especially when it comes to manufacturing up to a particular period. From 35%, the normal tax rate today is 25% for all companies, and for manufacturing it is even 15% up to a particular period. So I think a huge number of things have happened, and manufacturing is actually opening up to new sunrise sectors. And I think that's something very interesting, whether it is the hydrogen fuel cells, whether it is battery technology, whether it is ADAS systems, whether it is chip manufacturing. These are all new things which had never happened in India. So these are going to give a big fillip and bring in a completely new value chain, which will actually make India ready for not only selling in India, building for India, but building for the world. So I think that's one very, very major opportunity which has come up. So that's the domestic ecosystem. Then we have to look at the middle piece, which is the firm level competitiveness, which means how our companies need to be competitive on their own. We need to face the world. We need to have quality standards big time. And our biggest challenge is that we have great MSMEs, but they don't scale up. When it comes to scaling up, they have challenge of cost of capital, access to technology, and also not that kind of appetite to grow. So I think that is something which we need to work on, because that's why I say MSMEs. MSMEs are a very, very important piece in our things. So because 85% of manufacturing happens through MSMEs. 80% of employment generation in the manufacturing sector happens through MSMEs. If these MSMEs don't grow, the manufacturing, we can have anchor companies like the Toyotas and the Volvos of the world, but if we do not have the entire value chain, a resilient value chain, which supports this large companies, we will not be able to reach that. So it's very, very important that if you were to ask me what we need to do in addition to everything else what is happening in the country, I think just put everything behind the MSMEs. If they need funding, give them the funding. Take that risk. Nothing will happen. Take that risk, which the government has already done. Credit guarantee has been given. Interest cost, why should it be 10 and 11%? Bring it to 6 or 7%. Let us fund these things. I think we need to really put our best foot forward and really support MSMEs big time. And MSMEs, I mean, there will always be 5 to 10% guys who will misuse these opportunities, but let it be so. I mean, it will happen in any case. So I think 90%, you can fix 90% of this 85%. Which means you will fix 80% overall. So which is a great news to my mind. I think that's something which we need to do big time. And of course, quality I have talked about the new industry 4.0 transition, the new ways of working, all of that needs to be fixed, and that is where we will do. And the third piece in this whole manufacturing pillar is the global ecosystem, where the government has to work with outside with other countries to sign the FTAs, market access opportunities. See, manufacturing, you cannot take those plunges unless until global market is available to you, because many times economies of scale become very, very important in marketing, in manufacturing. So therefore, the world has to be your market, and that is something which we need to really move very fast on. So that is So to my mind, things are moving at a very, very good pace. So if we can fix these 3 things, I think India is on the right path with all the government support, with the PLI schemes. industry bodies need to work together. We need to work as one team when it comes to manufacturing. So I think that's something, to my mind, is the structural reforms of ease of doing business, scaling up manufacturing sector, improving logistics efficiency, focusing on some of the ecosystems, and then the third piece which I wanted to talk about is skills and development of talent. I think that is another, along with MSMEs, and I think CII is taking that plunge. We are going to build programs, 2-day programs for MSMEs, and we are going to deliver this over the next 1 year to all the MSMEs on how to start a business, how to grow your business, how to do a product development, how to go, what is the go-to-market strategy, brand building, business plans, everything. We are going to sit with MSMEs and work with all of them. So I think in addition to government, some of the industry bodies need to take that thing. So finally, if I were to say what other things are going to help, I think very, very clearly a stable government, this China plus one model. As you all know, almost $4 trillion of global manufacturing is moving out, and I think somebody already spoke about it. And even if moving out of China, $4 trillion out of $15 trillion of total manufacturing, $4 trillion is moving out. Even if India gets 10% of the shift, it will be $400 billion. Our current manufacturing is $400 billion. It means 10% of the shift will take our manufacturing to double, and that's peanuts. We hope at least 20 or 30% of the shift will come to India, and it is coming. 20% of shift comes, our manufacturing triples from $400 billion to $1.2 trillion. So that's the level of shift which is happening. But India can't, I mean, this is not going to come on its own. We have to work for it. And that's why I talked about those 3 pillars, which are so important. And we have to put that face together as a country, as one team, so that world acknowledges that India is the place to go. So I think that's something very important. We have a large domestic market, which is further going to grow. He talked about the consumers, and it's very, very natural. Today you are at $3.5 trillion economy. 10 years from 24, by the time you turn 100, you will be at least $35 trillion, which means 10 times the size. If your current per capita income is $2,500, it will be $25,000 by then at least. So you will be a rich or a middle income group. Imagine the amount of consumption you will have, and that consumption sets off a virtuous cycle of growth. That consumption means more demand means more manufacturing means more jobs, and that goes on and on. So I think we are having we have a great story going forward, but of course there are issues on digitization, transition to sustainability, climate actions. We also will need to really move several notches up on technology. It will not be business as usual. Finally, I will just close in the next 2 minutes by leaving behind 7 or 8 points. So number 1, just to summarize, number 1, focus on ecosystem and collaborations. I think we need to work as Team India. I don't think we can work any other way. Second is move from products to solution approach, which means not only look at your silo, because customer doesn't want products anymore. Customer wants solutions. No one company can provide that solution. You need to form those collaborations. Number 3, benchmark ourselves as a country with competition, whether it is Vietnam or anyone else, on taxes, on incentives, on ease of doing business, on cost of doing business, on logistics, on capital cost. On each of these important parameters for manufacturing, we must benchmark with 5 or 6 countries, Mexico, Vietnam, who are really our competitors. And we have to do better than them. I think that's very important. Global quality. Quality has to be back on the governance and board table. Quality is no more going to be an operational matter. Quality is a very strategic matter, and it is to be discussed at the board level. Number 5, build brand India. I think each one of us, when we go overseas, I think we are ambassadors of India. We must really, really leave that impression behind. Next, number 6, skills. Number 7, ensure sustainability and energy transition. Next is R&D and innovation. We need to focus on that. and finally support MSMEs outright, as I have talked about that. So I conclude my talk by quoting a quote from Anonymous which says, if not this, then what? If not us, then who? If not now, then when? So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure this is time that we pull all stops and take India to the level it deserves. Thank you. I hope I have not exceeded your time.
No, that's absolutely wonderful. On time, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the wonderful articulation on how the manufacturing sector is evolving and what needs to be done to move the needle from 17 to 25%. So we have a question here which has been asked by Mr. Ravindra Saha of Tata Technologies. What is the importance of R&D? Because while manufacturers strive to improve the technology, improve their scale, how important is R&D and how do companies prioritize the investment in R&D? Should they just replicate the technology or should they invest in R&D, create their own technologies and IP?
I think it is one of the most important imperatives for manufacturing to go to the next level, because we are working in a world where there's always a moving goalpost. Things are changing. Nothing is static today. What was true yesterday will be outdated maybe 1 year down the line. So R&D and innovation, as I also said in my some of the imperatives, are very, very important tools or probably strategic initiatives for any company to really work on. So that's going to be the key in any case. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So may I invite the office bearers and Mr. P. N. Vijay to kindly come on stage, hand over a memento to Mr. Bali. You write down your question, send it to me, then we will choose an appropriate question and ask them. Please forgive us if we are not able to give you the platform to ask the question, because we have very limited time and hence we are being selective about how to go about. Thank you.